My phone buzzed while I was elbow-deep in grease under Mrs. Patterson's ancient Buick. The text message glowed on my cracked screen. "Just a heads up, I told everyone we're taking a break." I stared at those words for a solid 30 seconds, transmission fluid dripping onto my forehead. 17 years of marriage, and apparently I'd missed the memo on my own relationship status. "Thanks for letting me know," I typed back, then added a thumbs-up emoji because sometimes sarcasm needs visual aids. "My name's Jake Morrison, and until that Tuesday afternoon in October, I thought I had a pretty decent life. I run Morrison Auto Repair in Millfield, a town that peaked sometime around 1987 when the paper mill still employed half the population. Now we've got more empty storefronts than businesses, but people still need their cars fixed, so I make ends meet. The Buick's transmission was shot, just like I'd told Mrs. Patterson it would be 6 months ago. She'd wanted a second opinion then. Now she was looking at a repair bill that cost more than the car was worth. Story of my life. Nobody listens until it's too late. I slid out from under the car and wiped my hands on a rag that had seen better decades. My workshop occupied the bottom floor of a converted Victorian house on Maple Street. Samantha, my wife, apparently my ex-wife now, had been after me for years to move the business somewhere more professional. She never understood that half my customers came here because it felt like visiting their grandfather's garage. The house upstairs had been our home for 12 years. We'd bought it when Maddie was 5 and full of dreams about fixing it up together. The dreams lasted about as long as Samantha's interest in small-town life. Speaking of Maddie, I could hear her voice drifting down from the kitchen window above. My 17-year-old daughter was on one of her marathon phone sessions, probably live-streaming her entire existence to whatever social media platform was trendy this week. "Mom totally deserves better," she was saying, her voice carrying that particular teenage certainty that makes adults want to drink heavily. "Dad's just, I don't know, hopeless? Like Derek actually takes her places and buys her nice things. He's got this amazing body, and he actually cares about how he looks." I stood there holding my greasy rag, listening to my daughter explain why my replacement was an upgrade. Derek. Even his name sounded like it belonged on a protein powder label. "Dad's always covered in motor oil," Maddie continued. "It's so embarrassing. Derek's a personal trainer, and he's got like 50,000 followers on Instagram. He posts these motivational videos that are actually inspiring. Nothing says I love you like a man bun and a motivational quote about crushing your Tuesday," I thought. But hey, what did I know? I just kept the town's cars running and paid for Maddie's phone plan. I climbed the back stairs to our kitchen, tracking a reasonable amount of grease despite my best efforts. The house smelled like the vanilla candles Samantha bought in bulk from some multi-level marketing scheme she'd briefly embraced. She'd embraced a lot of things briefly over the years: yoga instruction, essential oils, real estate, and apparently Derek. Maddie was perched on a bar stool at our kitchen island, phone propped against a cereal box, while she applied makeup with the precision of a surgeon. She glanced up when I walked in, and I caught the exact moment she remembered I was the enemy. "Hey, Dad," she said, but her tone had that careful neutrality she'd perfected lately. "Hey yourself, how was school?" "Fine." She went back to her makeup, but I could tell she was still recording. Great. My parenting skills were about to be broadcast to her 3,000 followers. "Your mom around?" "She's showing a house, the big one out on Lakeshore Drive." Maddie paused her mascara application. "Dad, are you guys really getting divorced?" Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The question hung in the air like smoke. I could see her phone screen. 17 viewers watching our family drama unfold in real time. The comments were already rolling in, little hearts and flame emojis and advice from teenagers who thought they understood adult relationships. "I honestly don't know, kiddo. Your mom and I need to talk. She says you've grown apart, that you want different things. What do you think I want?" Maddie shrugged, a gesture that somehow conveyed both indifference and judgment. "I don't know. To stay here forever, I guess. Fix cars and complain about the weather." "And what does your mom want?" "To be happy?" She said it like a question, like she wasn't entirely sure, but thought it was the right answer. I nodded and grabbed a beer from the fridge. Normally, I'd wait until after dinner, but Normal had apparently left the building. "Dad?" Maddie's voice was smaller now, less performative. "Are you going to fight for her?" I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She had Samantha's green eyes and my stubborn chin, and right now she looked like the little girl who used to help me change oil and wasn't embarrassed to be seen with her grease monkey father. "Would you want me to?" She considered this, and for a moment I thought I might get an honest answer. Then her phone buzzed with notifications, and the moment passed. I have to get ready. Luke's picking me up at 7. Luke was her boyfriend, a decent kid who played JV basketball and called me Sir without irony. At least someone in this family had good judgment. I took my beer to the living room and sank into my recliner, the one piece of furniture Samantha hadn't managed to replace with something more stylish. The house felt different now, like I was seeing it through strangers' eyes. The family photos on the mantel looked staged, like evidence of a life that had been performed rather than lived. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Samantha. We need to talk when I get home. Derek thinks we should be honest with Maddie about everything. Derek thinks. Derek, who'd apparently been promoted to family decision-maker while I was changing spark plugs. I finished my beer and went back down to the workshop. Mrs. Patterson's Buick wasn't going to fix itself, and right now, solving mechanical problems felt a lot more appealing than dealing with human ones. But as I slid back under the car, I couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was breaking down, something that wouldn't be fixed with new parts and elbow grease. The transmission fluid kept dripping, steady as a countdown timer, marking time until whatever came next. Samantha came home at 8:30, her heels clicking across the kitchen floor like a countdown timer. I was at the table, eating leftover pizza and reading the manual for a carburetor rebuild, and thrilling stuff, according to Derek's Instagram standards. We need to talk, she said, setting down her purse with the kind of precision that meant she'd rehearsed this moment. I looked up from my manual. My wife of 17 years stood in our kitchen wearing a dress I'd never seen before, something sleek and black that probably cost more than I made in a week. Her blonde hair was styled in a way that suggested professional intervention, and she was wearing perfume. Not the stuff she wore for me, something new. Nice dress, I said. Special occasion? Jake. She sat across from me, folding her hands like she was about to deliver a presentation. I know this is hard, but we need to be adults about this. I'm being adult. I'm eating pizza and reading about carburetors, very adult behavior. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Her voice carried that edge of frustration I'd been hearing more often lately. You turn everything into a joke. What would you prefer? Tears? Dramatic gestures? Should I challenge Derek to a duel? Her face flushed. How do you know about Derek? I gestured toward the ceiling. Maddie's not exactly subtle. Also, you left your other phone in the truck last week. Samantha went very still. You looked through my phone? I looked through a phone I found in my truck. Imagine my surprise when it wasn't mine. She stood up, pacing to the window that overlooked Main Street. Our kitchen window had a view of Patterson's Hardware, the empty lot where the diner used to be, and the kind of small-town landscape that apparently wasn't enough for her anymore. I didn't plan this, she said finally. Which part? The affair or getting caught? Don't be crude. I'm being accurate. You're sleeping with a personal trainer named Derek who posts motivational videos and has great abs. Did I miss anything important? She turned around, and for a moment I saw something that might have been guilt. He makes me feel alive again. As opposed to our marriage, which makes you feel what exactly? Stuck. The word came out sharp and immediate, like she'd been saving it up. I feel stuck, Jake, and we're stuck in this house, in this town, in this life that's going nowhere. I closed the carburetor manual and gave her my full attention. Where exactly did you want it to go? I don't know. Somewhere. Anywhere. She gestured around our kitchen like it was a prison cell. I'm 42 years old, and this is it? This is all I get? You could have mentioned feeling trapped sometime before you started your exit strategy. I tried to talk to you. Remember when I wanted to move to Portland? Or when I suggested we take that trip to Europe? You always had some excuse. The business, the house, Maddie's school. She wasn't wrong. I had made those excuses. But I'd also thought we were building something here, not serving time. So Derek's your ticket out? Derek's not about leaving. He's about living. She sat back down, leaning forward like she was trying to make me understand something crucial. He has goals, dreams. He's building something. What's he building? A fitness empire? He's opening a wellness center. Fitness, nutrition, life coaching. He's got investors interested. Investors. I nodded like this made perfect sense. And where do you fit into this wellness empire? He wants me to handle the business side, marketing, client relations. He says I have a natural talent for making people feel comfortable. I bet he did. What about your real estate license? What about it? I've sold 3 houses this year, Jake. 3, and 2 of those were because the sellers felt sorry for me. This was news to me. Samantha had always been cagey about her work, but I'd assumed things were going reasonably well. I didn't know you were struggling. Because you never ask. When's the last time you asked me about my day? Really asked, not just, how was work? While you're reading or watching TV or thinking about some engine problem. I tried to remember and came up empty. Point to Samantha. So, this is my fault? This is nobody's fault. We grew apart. It happens. Apparently it happens when you meet someone with better abs and bigger dreams. Stop making this about Derek. Derek seems pretty central to the situation. The front door opened and Maddie's voice carried back to the kitchen. I'm home. She appeared in the doorway, took one look at us sitting across from each other like negotiators, and her expression shifted to something between excitement and dread. Are you guys talking about the divorce? We're talking, Samantha said carefully. Good. Luke's parents got divorced last year, and he says it's way better when everyone's honest about stuff. Maddie pulled out her phone, probably to document this moment for posterity. Luke says his dad's actually happier now. Luke's very wise, I said. He is. He says you should meet Derek, Dad. Like actually meet him instead of just being weird about it. Samantha shot Maddie a look that could have powered the town for a week. Maddie, maybe we should... What? It's not like it's a secret. Derek's cool, Dad. He's not trying to replace you or anything. He just makes Mom happy. How considerate of him. See? Maddie pointed at me like I'd just proven her point. This is what I mean. You get all sarcastic and bitter instead of just dealing with stuff. How should I deal with it? I don't know. Be mature? Luke's dad took his mom's boyfriend to a baseball game. They're like friends now. The idea of taking Derek to a baseball game was so absurd, I almost laughed. Almost. Maybe we could all have dinner, Samantha suggested, and I could tell she was trying to sound reasonable. Just to clear the air. Dinner with Derek. It doesn't have to be weird. Right. Nothing weird about having dinner with my wife's boyfriend. He's not my boyfriend, Samantha said quickly. It's complicated. It seems pretty simple from where I'm sitting. Maddie flopped into the chair between us. God, you guys are so dramatic. Derek's coming to my drama club performance Thursday. You could meet him there. Derek's going to your school play? It's not a play, it's a showcase. We're doing scenes from different musicals. Maddie's face lit up with the enthusiasm she usually reserved for social media. I'm doing Defying Gravity from Wicked. That's great, kiddo. Derek says I have real talent. He knows people in the entertainment industry. Of course he did. Derek probably knew people in every industry, had connections everywhere, could open doors that a small-town mechanic never could. So you'll come Thursday? Maddie looked between us hopefully. Both of you, Samantha nodded. Of course. They both looked at me. My daughter, who wanted her parents to be mature adults about their imploding marriage. My wife, who wanted me to meet the man she was leaving me for. The man who was apparently going to help launch Maddie's entertainment career. Wouldn't miss it, I said. Maddie beamed and bounced upstairs to call Luke with the good news. Samantha and I sat in the kitchen, listening to our daughter's excited voice drifting down from her room. Thank you, Samantha said quietly. For what? For being decent about this. I nodded, but I wasn't feeling particularly decent. I was feeling like a man who'd just agreed to watch his replacement audition for his life. One question, I said. What? This wellness center Derek's building. How much of our money is invested in his dreams? Samantha's face went pale, and I had my answer. Thursday evening, I put on my best shirt, a blue button-down that only had one small stain, and drove to Millfield High School. The parking lot was full of minivans and SUVs, parents arriving to watch their kids perform scenes from musicals I'd never heard of. I spotted Samantha's car immediately. She was standing next to it, talking to a man who had to be Derek. Even from 50 yards away, I could tell he spent a lot of time looking in mirrors. Perfect posture, perfect hair, perfect smile as he gestured with hands that had never changed a tire or replaced a timing belt. I parked my truck, a 15-year-old Ford with character marks and honest rust, and walked over. Samantha saw me coming, and her smile became strained. Jake, this is Derek. Derek, my husband Jake. Derek extended a hand like we were meeting at a business conference. His grip was firm without being aggressive, and his palm was softer than my daughter's. Jake, great to finally meet you, man. Sam's told me so much about you. Sam. In 17 years of marriage, I'd never once called her Sam. All good things, I hope. Absolutely. She says you're like a magician with engines. Something like that. I looked him over, taking inventory. Derek was probably 6'2", with the kind of lean muscle that came from careful workouts and careful eating. His jeans were the expensive kind that were designed to look casual, and his t-shirt probably cost more than I spent on clothes in 6 months. I have to say, I really respect what you do, Derek continued. Working with your hands, building something real. There's something honest about it, you know? Honest work for honest people. Exactly. Derek's enthusiasm seemed genuine, which somehow made it worse. I keep telling Sam she should be proud. Not everyone can do what you do. Not everyone wants to. Samantha stepped between us like a referee. We should head inside. The show starts in 10 minutes. The high school auditorium hadn't changed since I'd graduated 24 years ago. Same burgundy seats, same faded curtains, same smell of industrial cleaner and teenage anxiety. We found seats in the middle section, Derek naturally positioning himself between Samantha and me. Maddie's really talented, Derek said as we waited for the show to start. She's got natural stage presence. She gets that from her mother. Sam says you're pretty shy about public stuff. I prefer smaller audiences. Nothing wrong with that. Different people, different comfort zones. Derek pulled out his phone and started recording as the lights dimmed. I promised Maddie I'd get her whole performance for her Instagram. The showcase began with a group number from Hamilton that I didn't recognize. The kids were enthusiastic, if not entirely on key, and the parents applauded like they were watching Broadway. Maddie appeared in the fourth act, wearing a black dress and more makeup than I was comfortable with. But when she started singing Defying Gravity, something magical happened. Her voice filled the auditorium with power and confidence, and for 3 minutes she wasn't my little girl anymore. She was a performer, commanding attention and deserving it. The audience erupted when she finished. I was clapping so hard my hands hurt, and when I looked over, Derek was wiping his eyes. She's incredible, he said. Absolutely incredible. I had to admit his emotion seemed genuine. Whatever else Derek was, he appeared to actually care about Maddie's performance. After the show, we waited in the lobby for Maddie to change out of costume. Other parents stopped to congratulate us, and I noticed how Derek handled the introductions. He didn't claim to be Maddie's stepfather or insert himself into conversations. He stood slightly back, letting Samantha and me be the parents while offering quiet support. Jake Morrison. Big Tom Kowalski appeared beside us, his massive frame making Derek look almost delicate by comparison. Tom ran the boxing gym where I worked out 3 mornings a week, and he had the kind of presence that made people step aside without thinking about it. Hey, Tom, how'd you like the show? That kid of yours has pipes, real talent. Tom looked at Derek with the same expression he'd used to evaluate a new punching bag. Don't think we've met. Derek Castellano. Derek offered his hand, and Tom shook it with the care of a man who knew his own strength. Tom Kowalski. I run the gym where Jake pretends to exercise. Derek's a personal trainer, Samantha offered. No kidding. Tom's grin was predatory. What kind of training? Functional fitness, mostly. Some bodybuilding, but I focus more on real-world strength and conditioning. Real-world strength, Tom repeated. Interesting. You ever do any boxing? Some, mostly for cardio. Jake here's got decent hands for a mechanic. Little slow, but he can take a punch. I could see where this was going and decided to redirect. Tom, have you met my wife, Samantha? Course I have. Hey, Sam. Tom's tone was carefully neutral, which meant he'd heard the gossip. In a town like Millfield, everybody knew everybody's business within 48 hours. Maddie finally appeared, still glowing from her performance. She hugged me first, which felt like a small victory. Did you see Derek recording? He got the whole thing. I saw. You were amazing, kiddo. Derek says I should audition for the community theater in Portland. They do real musicals with professional directors. That's a great idea, I said, and meant it. Maybe we could all go see a show sometime, Derek suggested. Make it a family thing. Family thing. The phrase hung in the air like a challenge. That sounds fun, Maddie said quickly. Like a double date, but with family. Speaking of dates, Tom interrupted. Jake, you still coming to the gym tomorrow? I've got some new equipment I want you to try. Wouldn't miss it. What kind of equipment? Derek asked. Heavy bag work, mostly. Jake's been working on his combinations. Cool. I'd love to see your setup sometime. I'm always interested in different training approaches. Tom's smile was pure shark. You should come by. I'm sure Jake wouldn't mind showing you around. I looked at Derek, this man who was sleeping with my wife and giving career advice to my daughter, and made a decision that felt both inevitable and completely insane. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. You can see how we do things in Millfield. Derek's face lit up. That sounds great. I love checking out different gyms. Samantha looked worried. Derek, you don't have to. No, I want to. It'll be fun. Tom clapped me on the shoulder hard enough to rattle my teeth. This should be interesting. As we walked to the parking lot, Maddie chattering excitedly about her performance and her new Portland audition plans, I caught Samantha's eye. "What are you doing?" she asked quietly. "Being mature," I said. "Isn't that what you wanted?" But as I watched Derek help Samantha into her car, his hand lingering on her back in a gesture of casual intimacy, I wasn't feeling mature at all. I was feeling like a man who'd just set a trap and couldn't wait to see what walked into it. I arrived at Tom's gym at 7:30, 30 minutes before Derek was supposed to show up. The place occupied the bottom floor of an old textile warehouse, all exposed brick and industrial lighting. It smelled like sweat, leather, and the kind of honest work that Derek probably thought was authentic. Tom was wrapping his hands at the heavy bag, warming up for his morning routine. At 58, he still moved like the middleweight contender he'd been 30 years ago. "So," he said without looking up, "we talking about a friendly workout, or are we talking about something else?" "Friendly workout." "Uh-huh." Tom finished his wraps and turned to face me. "Jake, I've known you since you were 12 years old. You've never invited anyone to work out with us, especially not some pretty boy who's screwing your wife. He seems nice enough." "I'm sure he does. Question is, how nice are you planning to be?" I started wrapping my own hands, taking my time with each finger. "I'm planning to be very nice. Show him around, maybe do some pad work, see what he's made of. And if what he's made of turns out to be tissue paper and protein powder, then I guess we'll find out together." Tom nodded slowly. "Fair enough. But Jake, this is my gym. We do things clean here." "Wouldn't have it any other way." Derek arrived at exactly 8 o'clock, carrying a gym bag that probably cost more than most people's rent. He was wearing athletic shorts and a tank top that showcased his carefully sculpted physique. Everything about him screamed professional fitness model. "This place is amazing," he said, looking around at the heavy bags, speed bags, and ring that dominated the space. "It's got such great energy." "Tom's been running it for 20 years, I said. "It's where the serious people come to work." "I can tell, very old school." Derek set down his bag and started stretching, moving through a routine that was probably choreographed for maximum visual impact. "So what's the workout plan?" Tom appeared beside us like a mountain materializing from fog. "Thought we'd start with some basic combinations, see how you move." "Sounds perfect. I love learning new techniques." We started with shadowboxing, just moving around the ring and throwing punches at air. Derek had clearly had some training. His form was textbook perfect, his combinations smooth and precise. But there was something missing, some quality that separated people who threw punches from people who fought. "Nice technique," Tom observed. "Very clean." "Thanks. I work with a guy in Portland who used to train professionals." "No kidding. Jake, why don't you show Derek some pad work?" I strapped on the focus mitts while Derek pulled on gloves. We started slow, basic jab-cross combinations, letting him get used to hitting something that hit back. "Good power," I said, and it was true. Derek could throw a punch. "Thanks. I've been working on my conditioning." He threw another combination, crisp and controlled. "This is fun, different from hitting a heavy bag." "Pads teach you timing," Tom said. "Bags just teach you to hit hard." We worked for 10 minutes, building up speed and complexity. Derek was sweating but not breathing hard, his conditioning clearly excellent. When we switched roles and he held pads for me, he handled the impact well. "You're stronger than you look," he said after I threw a particularly hard cross. "Farm boy strength, different from gym strength." "I can tell, very functional." After pad work, Tom suggested we try some light sparring. "Just technical stuff. No power, just movement and timing." Derek looked eager. "I'd love that. I don't get many chances to spar with different people." We put on headgear and climbed into the ring. Tom acted as referee, emphasizing that this was about technique, not competition. The first round was cautious, both of us feeling each other out. Derek moved well, staying on the outside and throwing quick combinations before circling away. His footwork was good, his defense sound. But by the second round, I started to notice things. Derek didn't like pressure. When I stepped forward and crowded him, his technique became less precise. He was used to controlling distance, dictating the pace. "Nice work," Tom called out. "Derek, try cutting off the ring when he circles." Derek nodded and tried to trap me in the corner, but he telegraphed his intentions. I slipped his jab and stepped inside, not throwing punches, but just making him uncomfortable in close quarters. "Good movement, Jake. Derek, keep your hands up when you're in close." The third round was when things got interesting. Derek was starting to breathe harder, and I could see frustration creeping into his movements. He was used to looking good, to having his technique admired, but sparring wasn't about looking good. It was about solving problems under pressure. I started mixing in body shots, nothing hard but enough to make him think about protecting his midsection. When he dropped his hands to block, I'd flick light jabs at his head. When he raised his guard, I'd go back to the body. "Time," Tom called, and we touched gloves. Derek pulled off his headgear, his perfect hair now damp with sweat. "That was great. You're really good at cutting angles. Just experience. You've got good technique." "Thanks." Derek looked around the gym, taking in the faded photos of fighters and the equipment that had seen decades of use. "This place has such character. Very authentic." "It's not about authentics," Tom said quietly. "It's about work." Derek nodded like he understood, but I could see he didn't. For him, this was an experience, something to post about or mention at parties. For Tom and me, it was just Thursday morning. "I should probably head out," Derek said, checking his phone. "I've got a client at 10. "Thanks for coming by," I said. "It was fun." "Definitely. We should do this again sometime." Derek gathered his gear, moving with the efficient grace of someone who was always conscious of being watched. "Sam was right. You're a lot tougher than you look." After he left, Tom and I finished our workout in comfortable silence. Finally, as we were cleaning up, he spoke. "Well, what do you think?" "I think he's exactly what he appears to be. Good-looking, well-trained, probably decent to your daughter." Tom hung up his gloves with the care of a man who respected his equipment. "Also thinks he's tougher than he is." "That's a problem?" "Only if someone decides to test it." Tom looked at me directly. "Jake, whatever you're planning, be careful. Guys like that, when they get embarrassed, they don't just go away. They get mean." I nodded, but I wasn't really listening. I was thinking about the way Derek had moved when I pressured him, the way his technique had crumbled when things got uncomfortable. Everyone had a breaking point. Derek's was just prettier than most. That afternoon, I was replacing the alternator on Jimmy Castellano's pickup when I realized something that made me stop cold. Castellano. Derek's last name was Castellano. Jimmy was about 60, a retired electrician who'd lived in Millfield his entire life. His truck was older than my marriage and twice as reliable, but the alternator had finally given up. "Jimmy," I said, wiping grease off my hands, "you got any relatives named Derek?" Jimmy's face darkened like a storm cloud. "Why?" "Just curious. Met a Derek Castellano the other day." "That'd be my nephew. My brother's kid from Portland." Jimmy spat into the dirt beside his truck. "What's that little piece of work doing in Millfield?" This was interesting. "You don't sound like you're close." "Close? Jake, that boy's been nothing but trouble since he was old enough to walk. Thinks the world owes him something because he's pretty and can talk smooth." I kept working on the alternator, but I was listening carefully. "What kind of trouble?" "The expensive kind. Always got some scheme going, some big plan that needs just a little investment to get started." Jimmy shook his head. 3 years ago, he talked my brother into mortgaging his house to fund some fitness studio. Place went under in 6 months. "What happened to the money?" "Good question. Derek claimed it all went to equipment and rent, but my brother never saw receipts for half of it." Jimmy's voice was getting harder. "My brother lost his house, Jake. Had to move in with his daughter and her family." I set down my wrench. "Derek stole from his own uncle?" "Didn't steal exactly. Just managed the money real creatively. Nothing you could prove in court, but my brother's still paying off credit cards Derek ran up in the business name." This was better than I'd hoped. "He's still doing the fitness thing?" "Far as I know. Got himself some fancy certification and calls himself a wellness coach now. Probably looking for new investors." Jimmy studied my face. "Why you asking, Jake?" I could have lied, but Jimmy had been straight with me. "He's dating my wife." Jimmy went very still. "Sam's seeing Derek?" "Apparently." "Oh, hell, Jake, I'm sorry." "Not your fault. Your nephew's got good abs and big dreams." "Dreams." Jimmy snorted. "That boy's got dreams like a tick's got wings. All talk, no substance." He paused. "You want some advice?" "I'm listening." "Watch your wallet. Derek's got a talent for making other people's money disappear." After Jimmy left with his newly functional truck, I sat in my workshop thinking about family dynamics and missing money. Then I did something I'd never done before. I looked up my wife's business on the internet. Samantha's real estate website was professionally designed, full of photos of her smiling in front of houses and testimonials from satisfied clients. But when I dug deeper, looking at actual sales records and MLS listings, a different picture emerged. She told me she'd only sold 3 houses this year. According to public records, she'd actually sold 7. All of them in the past 4 months. All of them to the same LLC, Cascade Wellness Properties. I pulled up the LLC registration. Derek Castellano was listed as the managing member. My wife hadn't been struggling with her real estate career. She'd been funneling properties to her boyfriend's business venture, properties that were probably being bought with money she'd somehow accessed from our joint accounts. I checked our bank statements online, something I rarely did since Samantha handled most of our finances. What I found made my stomach drop. Over the past 6 months, she'd transferred nearly $40,000 from our business account to something called MW Investment Holdings. Our retirement fund was down by another $20,000, withdrawn in increments small enough to avoid triggering any automatic notifications. Derek wasn't just sleeping with my wife. He was stealing my money to fund his wellness empire dreams. I sat there staring at the computer screen, adding up the numbers. $60,000. That was my truck, my equipment, my daughter's college fund. That was 17 years of fixing cars and saving money, gone to finance my replacement. My phone rang. Samantha. "Hey," she said, her voice bright and artificial. "How was the gym this morning?" "Educational." "Derek said he had a great time. He really likes Tom's setup." "I'm sure he does." "Sam, we need to talk." "About what?" "About MW Investment Holdings, about Cascade Wellness Properties, about where $60,000 of our money went." The silence stretched so long, I thought she'd hung up. "Jake, I'm coming home. We're going to discuss your investment strategy." "I can explain?" "I'm sure you can. Question is whether I'm going to believe you." I closed the laptop and locked up the workshop. The drive home took 3 minutes, but it felt like crossing a continent. Everything looked different now. The houses I'd driven past for 12 years, the streets where I'd learned to drive, the town where I'd thought I was building a life. Samantha was waiting in the kitchen, still wearing her real estate blazer, but looking smaller somehow. Guilty people always looked smaller. "It's not what you think," she said before I'd even sat down. "What do I think?" "That I stole from us. That I betrayed you. Didn't you?" "I invested in our future. Derek's business is going to be huge, Jake. The wellness industry is exploding, and he's got connections, real backing." "Who's backing?" "Investors from Portland. People who understand the market." "What investors?" She hesitated, and I had my answer. "There are no investors, are there? Just our money and whatever Derek could charm out of other people." "That's not true. Show me the business plan. Show me the investor agreements. Show me anything that proves this isn't just Derek spending our retirement fund on his fantasies." Samantha sat down across from me, and for a moment she looked like the woman I'd married. Uncertain, vulnerable, human. "He's not like that," she said quietly. "His uncle might disagree." Her face went pale. "You talked to Jimmy?" "Jimmy talked to me. Told me about Derek's last business venture, the one that cost his uncle his house. That was different. Derek learned from that experience." "He learned that family money is easier to steal than stranger money?" "Stop calling it stealing." "What would you call it?" "An investment in our marriage, in our future." I stared at her, this woman who'd shared my bed for 17 years, who'd raised my daughter, who'd apparently decided that our future required my money and her boyfriend's dreams. "Our marriage is over, Sam. You ended it when you started planning your exit strategy." "It doesn't have to be over." "You're right. It was over when you decided Derek's wellness center was more important than our retirement. It was over when you started lying about your sales numbers. It was over when you chose him. I chose possibility, Jake. I chose hope. You chose a con artist with good abs." She stood up, anger finally replacing guilt. "You don't understand. You never understood. This town, this life, it's not enough. It was never enough. For you. For anyone with ambition, for anyone who wants more than fixing cars and drinking beer and talking about the weather. What about Maddie? What about her? She's 17 years old, and you're blowing up her family to chase some trainer's get-rich-quick scheme. I'm showing her that women don't have to settle, that they can take risks and build something better. You're showing her that promises don't mean anything, that marriage is just a business arrangement you can dissolve when you find better terms." Samantha grabbed her purse, her keys, her phone. "I'm staying at Alyssa's tonight. We can talk when you're ready to be rational. Bring Derek. I'd love to discuss his business plan." She left without another word, her heels clicking across the kitchen floor like a countdown timer running out. I sat alone in our kitchen, surrounded by 17 years of shared life, and started planning my next move. Derek wanted to play with other people's money? Fine. Let's see how he liked playing with someone who knew the rules. Alyssa Chen lived in the new development on the north side of town, where the houses all looked like they'd been designed by someone who'd seen a magazine photo of luxury living and decided to build 50 copies. Her place was a 2-story colonial with a 3-car garage and the kind of landscaping that required professional maintenance. I'd never liked Alyssa, and the feeling was mutual. She was Samantha's best friend from college, a divorce attorney who'd moved to Millfield 5 years ago, and spent most of her time convincing the local wives that they deserved better than what they had. What I'd forgotten until Jimmy Castellano mentioned Derek's business history was that Alyssa had briefly been my business partner. 7 years ago, she'd approached me about expanding Morrison Auto Repair. She had money to invest, connections in Portland, big plans for turning my small operation into a regional chain. For 6 months, we'd been partners in Morrison Chen Automotive Services. Then I discovered that Alyssa was billing personal expenses to the business account and using our shop to launder money from her divorce practice. When I'd confronted her, she'd claimed it was all a misunderstanding, just creative bookkeeping. I'd bought out her share and dissolved the partnership, but not before she'd cost me nearly $15,000 in fraudulent expenses and legal fees. Now she was hosting my wife and probably helping plan Derek's wellness center financing. Small world. I parked across the street from Alyssa's house at 9 p.m. when the neighborhood was settling into its evening routine. Samantha's car was in the driveway, along with a red Mustang that had to belong to Derek. Through the living room window, I could see the three of them sitting around Alyssa's glass coffee table, papers spread out like they were planning a merger. Derek was gesturing enthusiastically while Alyssa took notes and Samantha nodded along. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Derek. Sam gave me your number. Can we talk? I think there's been some misunderstandings." I typed back, "What kind of misunderstandings?" "About the business stuff. I know it looks bad, but I can explain everything. Can you meet me tomorrow, just the two of us?" Interesting. Derek wanted to manage the situation before it got out of hand. "Where?" "How about the diner on Main Street? Noon?" "See you there." I drove home and spent the evening researching Derek's business history. What I found was a pattern of failed ventures, angry investors, and creative financing arrangements that always seemed to benefit Derek more than his partners. The fitness studio that had cost his uncle's house was just the latest in a series of wellness-related businesses that had started with big promises and ended with empty bank accounts. Derek had a talent for finding people with money and dreams, combining them in ways that made him rich and them poor. He also had a talent for staying just on the legal side of fraud. Nothing he did was technically criminal, just morally flexible. The next morning, I arrived at Murphy's Diner 15 minutes early and took a booth in the back where I could watch the door. Derek showed up exactly on time, looking like he'd stepped out of a fitness magazine despite the circumstances. "Jake, thanks for meeting me." He slid into the booth across from me, his smile strained but determined. "I know this is awkward." "Which part? The part where you're sleeping with my wife or the part where you're spending my money?" "Both, I guess." Derek signaled the waitress for coffee. "Look, I'm not going to insult you by pretending this isn't complicated, but I want you to know I never intended for things to happen this way." "How did you intend for them to happen?" "Honestly, I came to Millfield to scout locations for the wellness center. I met Sam at an open house and we just connected. She's an amazing woman, Jake. Smart, ambitious, beautiful, but she's also frustrated. She feels trapped. By me. By circumstances. By living in a small town with limited opportunities. By being married to someone who doesn't share her dreams." I sipped my coffee and studied Derek's face. He was good at this. Earnest, sympathetic, reasonable. The kind of man who could convince you that stealing your wife and your money was actually doing you a favor. What dreams? Building something bigger. Creating opportunities, making a real impact instead of just getting by. And your wellness center is going to do that. It's going to revolutionize how people think about fitness and health in this region. We're talking about a full-service facility, gym, spa, nutrition counseling, life coaching, a place where people can transform their entire lives. Sounds expensive. The best investments always are. But Jake, I want you to know, Sam didn't just give me your money, she invested it. You're going to be a partner in this. This was beautiful. Derek was so smooth he probably believed his own pitch. A partner. 20% ownership, proportional to your investment. When the center takes off, you'll make back everything and more. What if it doesn't take off? Derek's smile flickered. It will. I've done this before. I heard about your last venture. Your uncle's still paying off the credit cards. That was a learning experience. I was younger, less experienced. This time is different. Because you've got Alyssa helping with the legal structure? Derek went very still. How do you know about Alyssa's involvement? Small town. People talk. Alyssa's just helping with some paperwork, making sure everything's properly documented. Like she documented our business partnership 7 years ago? Derek's face went pale. I don't know anything about that. Sure you do. Alyssa told you all about it. How she tried to expand my business and I was too small-minded to appreciate her vision. How I forced her out just when things were getting interesting. Jake, I think you're misunderstanding. I understand perfectly. Alyssa found the perfect mark, a frustrated wife with access to money and a grudge against her husband. You provided the charm and the business plan. She provided the legal framework and the personal motivation. Derek stood up, dropping a 10 on the table. I think this conversation is over. Sit down, Derek. Something in my voice made him pause. Sit down and let me tell you what's going to happen next. Derek sat, but his body language had changed. The friendly mask was slipping, revealing something harder underneath. You're going to return every penny you've taken from my accounts. You're going to dissolve whatever business entities you've created with my money, and you're going to disappear from Millfield. I can't do that. Why not? Because the money's already been invested. Equipment deposits, lease agreements, marketing costs. It's not liquid anymore. Then make it liquid. It doesn't work that way. I leaned forward. Derek, I know exactly how it works. I know about the shell companies, the inflated expenses, the money that disappears into consulting fees and management costs. I know because I've seen Alyssa's playbook before. You're paranoid. I'm experienced. There's a difference. Derek pulled out his phone. I think Sam should be part of this conversation. Go ahead, call her. He did, putting the phone on speaker. Samantha answered on the second ring. Derek, how's it going? Not great. Jake's making some pretty serious accusations. What kind of accusations? He thinks we're stealing from him. Jake. Samantha's voice was sharp with frustration. We've been over this. It's an investment. In a business run by a con artist and a woman who tried to defraud me 7 years ago. Alyssa made some mistakes, but Alyssa made deliberate choices, just like you're making now. What do you want, Jake? I want my money back. I want Derek gone. And I want you to decide whether you're my wife or his business partner. The silence stretched until Derek finally spoke. Sam, maybe we should give him some time to cool off. Good idea, Samantha said. Jake, we'll talk tonight. Derek hung up and smiled, but it wasn't the friendly smile from earlier. This one had teeth. You know what your problem is, Jake? You think small. You see threats where other people see opportunities. What opportunities do you see? A successful business, a happy wife, a chance to be part of something bigger than fixing cars in a struggling town. And if I'm not interested in your opportunities? Derek's smile widened. Then you're going to be very unhappy with how this plays out. He left the diner, and I sat there drinking coffee and thinking about threats and opportunities and the difference between them. Derek was right about one thing. I was going to be very unhappy. But not for the reasons he thought. That evening, I drove to Alyssa's house for what I suspected would be our final family meeting. The red Mustang was still in the driveway, along with Samantha's car and a black BMW I didn't recognize. Alyssa answered the door wearing the kind of smile that divorce attorneys practiced in mirrors. Jake, come in. We're in the living room. The scene was like a business presentation gone wrong. Derek sat on the couch next to Samantha, a laptop open on the coffee table showing what looked like architectural drawings. Alyssa had papers spread across the surface, contracts, financial projections, legal documents. The man I didn't recognize stood by the window, wearing an expensive suit and the expression of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. Jake, this is Michael Brennan, Alyssa said. He's a commercial real estate developer from Portland. Brennan stepped forward and offered his hand. Mr. Morrison, I understand you have some concerns about the Wellness Center project. A few? I hope I can address them. I've been working with Derek and Ms. Chen to structure this investment in a way that benefits everyone involved. How's that working out? Brennan glanced at Derek, who nodded encouragingly. The Cascade Wellness Center represents a significant opportunity for this region. Derek's vision, combined with the right financial backing, could transform how people in rural Oregon think about health and fitness. What kind of financial backing? A combination of private investment and municipal development funds. The city of Millfield has agreed to provide tax incentives and infrastructure support. This was news to me. The city's involved? Preliminary discussions only, Alyssa said quickly. Nothing formal. But promising, Derek added. Mayor Patterson is very interested in bringing new business to Millfield. I looked around the room at these people who were planning my town's future with my money, and something clicked into place. Michael, can I ask you something? Of course. How long have you been working with Derek? About 6 months. We met through mutual connections in Portland. What connections? Brennan looked uncomfortable. Professional networks. The fitness industry is fairly tight-knit. I bet it is. What other projects have you worked on together? This is our first collaboration. But not Derek's first wellness center. No, he has extensive experience in the industry, including the fitness studio that went bankrupt 3 years ago. The room went quiet. Derek's face had gone hard, and Alyssa was watching me like I was a dangerous animal. That was a different situation, Derek said carefully. How different? Different market conditions, different business model, different investors' money to lose? Jake, Samantha said, you're being hostile. I'm being realistic. Michael, did Derek tell you about his uncle's house? Brennan looked confused. I'm not sure what you mean. Derek's last business venture cost his uncle his home. 60-year-old man had to move in with his daughter because Derek's creative financing left him holding worthless debt. That's not what happened, Derek said, but his voice lacked conviction. What did happen? Market conditions changed. The fitness industry went through a downturn. We had to restructure. You had to disappear with the money. Derek stood up, his carefully maintained composure finally cracking. You know what, Jake? I'm tired of your accusations. Either you're part of this or you're not, but I'm done listening to your paranoid theories. What theories? That I'm some kind of con artist, that Sam and Alyssa are conspiring against you, that everyone's out to steal your precious money. Are you? Are we what? Out to steal my money? Derek looked around the room, seeking support. Samantha was staring at her hands. Alyssa was organizing papers with unnecessary precision. Brennan was checking his phone. Your money is invested in a legitimate business venture, Derek said finally. If you can't handle the risk, maybe you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be married to someone who didn't lie to me. I never lied to you, Samantha said quietly. You told me you'd only sold 3 houses this year. I was protecting you. From what? From yourself. From your fear of change. From your need to control everything. I looked at my wife of 17 years, sitting on another woman's couch next to the man she was leaving me for, surrounded by documents that would make her rich and me poor. Sam, do you love him? The question surprised everyone, including me. What? Derek, do you love him, or do you love what he represents? She looked at Derek, then back at me. I love the life he's offering me. That's not the same thing. It's enough. I nodded and stood up. Then I guess we're done here. Where are you going? Alyssa asked. Home, to call my lawyer. Jake, wait, Derek said. We can work this out. There's no need for lawyers. There's every need. You've stolen $60,000 from my family. Samantha's violated her fiduciary duty as my business partner, and Alyssa's facilitating fraud just like she did 7 years ago. It's not fraud, Alyssa said sharply. Everything we've done is completely legal. Legal and ethical aren't the same thing. In business, legal is what matters. I looked around the room one more time, at the architectural drawings for Derek's Dream Center, at the contracts that would make my money disappear, at the faces of people who'd decided my future without consulting me. You're right, I said. Legal is what matters. So we understand each other? Derek asked. Perfectly. I left Alyssa's house and drove home through streets I'd known my entire life. But everything looked different now, like I was seeing Millfield through strangers' eyes. At home, I sat in my kitchen and made 3 phone calls. The first was to my lawyer, a man named Pete Kowalski, who happened to be Big Tom's brother. I explained the situation and asked him to start divorce proceedings and investigate the business investments. The second was to Jimmy Castellano. I told him his nephew was back in the family business and suggested he might want to warn some people. The third was to Mayor Patterson. I asked him about the city's involvement in the Wellness Center project. What Wellness Center? He asked. The one Derek Castellano's building with municipal support. Jake, I've never heard of Derek Castellano, and we're not supporting any wellness centers. Interesting. Thanks, Mayor. I hung up and smiled for the first time in days. Derek was right about one thing. Legal was what mattered. And lying to investors about municipal support was very illegal indeed. The next morning, I opened Morrison Auto Repair as usual, but instead of working on cars, I made more phone calls. To the State Attorney General's office about investment fraud, to the IRS about unreported business income, to the Oregon Department of Justice about interstate financial crimes. By noon, I had a file folder full of case numbers and reference codes. At 1 o'clock, Derek's red Mustang pulled into my parking lot. He got out moving like a man who'd been awake all night, his usual polish replaced by something desperate and sharp. We need to talk, he said. About what? About backing off. About letting this go. I set down my wrench and gave him my full attention. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, Everyone gets hurt. Sam, Maddie, even you. How do I get hurt? Derek stepped closer, and I could see the gym muscles under his expensive shirt. Accidents happen, Jake. Small towns can be dangerous places. Are you threatening me? I'm explaining reality. You're in over your head here. I nodded thoughtfully. You know what's interesting about small towns, Derek? What? Everyone knows everyone else's business, like how Jimmy Castellanos been telling people about his nephew, the con artist. How Mayor Patterson's been telling people about the wellness center that doesn't exist. How Big Tom's been telling people about the pretty boy who thinks he's tough. Derek's face went pale. What are you talking about? I'm talking about your municipal support that isn't municipal, your investor who's never invested, your business plan that's built on lies. You can't prove anything. I don't have to. The state attorney general will do that for me. Derek grabbed my shirt, his fitness model facade finally cracking completely. You little piece of... He never finished the sentence because Big Tom appeared beside him like a mountain materializing from fog. Problem here, Jake? Derek let go of my shirt and stepped back, but Tom moved with him, staying close enough to reach out and touch. No problem, Tom. Derek was just explaining small-town reality to me. Was he now? Tom looked Derek up and down with the expression of a man evaluating meat. What kind of reality? The kind where accidents happen to people who don't mind their own business. Tom nodded slowly. Interesting. Derek, you ever been in a real accident? What? A real accident, not a gym injury or a pulled muscle, something that changes how you think about threatening people. Derek looked around my parking lot, probably hoping for backup that wasn't coming. I wasn't threatening anyone. Course not, just explaining reality. Tom smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Let me explain some reality back. This is Jake's town. These are Jake's people. You threaten him, you threaten all of us. I'm not afraid of you. You should be. But more than that, you should be afraid of what happens when word gets around that you're threatening people's livelihoods. What do you mean? Tom pulled out his phone and showed Derek the screen. Social media is a wonderful thing. Jimmy Castellanos been posting about his nephew, the business genius. Got quite a response from folks who've dealt with you before. Derek's face went white as he read the comments. Turns out you've got quite a reputation in Portland. A lot of angry investors, a lot of people who'd love to know where you're hiding. That's harassment. That's community service. Tom put away his phone. Derek, you seem like a smart young man, smart enough to know when it's time to cut your losses. I can't just walk away. I've got commitments. To who? Sam. She'll get over it. Alyssa? She's got bigger problems than your hurt feelings. What problems? Tom looked at me. Want to tell him, or should I? Pete Kowalski's been busy, I said. Turns out Alyssa's been creative with more than just my money. The State Bar Association is very interested in her client account management. Derek stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You reported her? I reported everything. The fraudulent business entities, the fake municipal support, the pattern of investment fraud across state lines. I shrugged. Like you said, legal is what matters. You're insane. I'm thorough. Derek pulled out his phone and called someone. Alyssa, we have a problem. No, a big problem. He knows about the municipal thing. Yes, I'm sure. What do you mean you can't fix it? He hung up and looked at me with something approaching respect. How long have you known? Known what? That there was no municipal support, that Brennan was fake, that the whole thing was a setup. I suspected when you mentioned Mayor Patterson. I knew when I called him. So why didn't you stop it earlier? Because I wanted to see how far you'd go, how much you'd steal, how many lies you'd tell. Derek laughed, but it sounded hollow. You used your own wife as bait. I used your greed as bait. Sam just happened to be standing next to it. She loves me? She loves the idea of you. There's a difference. Derek's phone buzzed with a text. He read it, and his face crumpled. What is it? Tom asked. Alyssa. She's been arrested. I felt a moment of satisfaction, followed immediately by something that might have been pity. Derek was a con artist and a thief, but he was also a man watching his world collapse in real time. Derek, I said, you've got maybe 6 hours before the state investigators start looking for you. I'd suggest you use them wisely. What do you want? I want my money back. All of it. I don't have it. Then get it. How? That's your problem. But Derek, if you run, they'll find you. If you hide, they'll find you. The only way this ends well for you is if you make it right. Derek nodded slowly, like a man accepting his fate. And Sam? Sam made her choice. She'll have to live with the consequences. He got in his Mustang and drove away, leaving Tom and me standing in my parking lot. Think he'll do the right thing? Tom asked. I think he'll do whatever keeps him out of prison. Same thing in this case. Yeah, same thing. Tom clapped me on the shoulder. Jake, I've got to ask, how long have you been planning this? Since the moment I found out about the money, maybe longer. You could have just divorced her and moved on. I could have. But then Derek would have found another Mark, and Alyssa would have found another partner, and some other family would have gotten destroyed. So this was about justice? I thought about it. This was about consequences. People like Derek and Alyssa, they count on their victims being too embarrassed or too scared to fight back. They count on getting away with it. And you decided not to let them. I decided to let them hang themselves. I just provided the rope. Tom nodded approvingly. Your dad would be proud. Yeah, I think he would. We stood there for a moment, looking out at the town where I'd been born and raised and where I'd probably spend the rest of my life. It wasn't much to look at. A few blocks of struggling businesses, some decent people trying to make ends meet, the kind of place that ambitious people left as soon as they could. But it was mine, and nobody was going to steal it from me. Not Derek with his wellness center dreams, not Alyssa with her legal manipulations, not even Samantha with her need for something bigger and better. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You win. Money will be returned by end of business today. I'm leaving town. I showed the message to Tom. Think he means it? Doesn't matter. If the money comes back, great. If not, the state will track him down and make him wish he'd kept his word. And your wife? I looked at the text again, then deleted it. My wife made her choice. Now she gets to live with it. Tom headed back to his gym, and I went back to work on Mrs. Patterson's Buick. The transmission was still shot, but at least I could fix that. Some things, once broken, stayed broken. But some things were worth fixing, no matter how long it took. As I worked, I thought about Derek's question. How long have you known? The truth was, I'd known from the beginning. Not the details, not the specifics, but the shape of it. The feeling of being managed, manipulated, moved around like a piece on someone else's game board. I just decided to play by different rules. Derek thought he was the predator, and I was the prey. Alyssa thought she was the mastermind, and I was the mark. Samantha thought she was trading up, and I was getting left behind. They were all wrong. I was the one who'd grown up here, who knew how small towns worked, who understood that information was power and patience was a weapon. I was the one who'd let them think they were winning while I documented their crimes and built my case. I was the one who'd turned their greed against them and watched them destroy themselves. In the end, Derek was right about one thing. This was about reality. He just didn't understand whose reality we were playing in. The transmission fluid kept dripping, steady as a heartbeat, marking time in a town that looked the same as it had yesterday but felt completely different. My phone rang. Samantha. I let it go to voicemail. Some conversations could wait, some bridges were worth burning, and some victories were worth savoring alone. I finished the transmission repair as the sun set over Millfield, painting the sky the color of consequences. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and questions and the messy business of untangling 17 years of marriage. But tonight, I was just a man in his workshop, fixing something that could be fixed, surrounded by tools that did what they were supposed to do. It was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.